we can have a photo. We can have a photo. Okay, yeah, okay. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Georg Huben. It's nice to have a almost full plenary, which is nice. And that shows a bit of interest in the topic of today, which is matching cities and finance. And that's a quite thrilling topic, I guess. And we have a few keynote speakers who are going to set the scene before we move into the atrium later on, and to do some matchmaking, which is, let's say, the second part of today, to which I'm quite looking forward. But now, I would like to welcome and give the floor to my head of unit, Andrea Strachinescu, responsible, between other things, for the Innovation Partnership on Smart Cities and Communities. And Andrea will give us a bit of an insight in what this is about and how this links to today's topic. Andrea, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our session. I think that it's not easy. We know very well that we had 3 intense days. I hope you still have some energy for this session, for the matchmaking. I promise it will be interesting. So what I would like to mention, probably you are aware, probably not, this initiative, this journey on smart cities and communities started 6 years ago. At that moment, we created the European Innovation Partnership, and we mentioned that we have the ambition to bring cities further on the path of development, sustainable development, and to bring together the energy, ICT, and transport sector. It was not easy. And it was the first step. But further and further with Horizon 2020, we came and we started developing projects looking at this. We started developing, having lighthouse cities, follower cities. And what we put as well, and we wanted to do, we want to do the link with other initiatives, because smart cities is not the only one at European Union level, and probably you are aware that there are plenty. For us, extremely important, of course, it's Covenant of Mayors, because you have a huge number of cities there. And the link that we wanted to do is asking in Horizon 2020 the sustainable energy and action plans as defined by cities in the Covenant of Mayors to be already a prerequisite for the projects that are going to engage. We did it from this perspective, but is the other way around still to be done? Now we have 78 cities that they are involved in our projects. 3 years continue to run, projects to be added and cities to be added. So we'll have quite interesting communities. And on the other side, we have Covenant of Mayors with more than 7,000 cities engaged to do something in Europe. Innovation is coming from all these projects. We'll have probably more than 100 cities in which innovation will be either demonstrated, either plans to put in practice. But how we are going to bring this and maybe this innovation to be replicated in the cities in the Covenant of Mayors that are engaged to change something. I think it's time to do something the other way around. But for this, we need an exercise like the one that is done today. We need to work more together and to see how we are moving from all the exchanges that currently were done within the partnership in the action cluster. So we discussed a lot, but we have to move to the next step and to arrive to find concrete partners and financing. Now, you will have the opportunity, I hope, and I will kindly and warmly invite you to the General Assembly of Smart Cities and Communities that is going to take place on 28th of June in Sofia, and there we are going to do really a practical exercise about finding funding for the projects. So the matchmaking is starting today, and it will be continued in Sofia. And I really hope that at the end of this exercise, the ambition which was put in European Innovation Partnership to really create a pipeline of projects which are really ambitious amount of money to be put on the table. I will not mention the amount because it's just a little bit, the figure, it's impressive, but nevertheless, I think it is in our hands to work together and to try to become partners in projects. So as I said, today is the first step, and looking forward to see what are going to be the results. I'm more than certain that interesting projects will come from all this exercise. And without going further, I wish you all the success, and if things are developing in the right direction, we'll have, of course, the feeling that the work that we've done up to now, starting with 2012, it was in the right direction. So all the success, and I think that my colleague from dealing with the governance will have also something to add, but I will let Georg to properly introduce you, Eva. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Andrea, for this nice introduction. And indeed, there's more to that than just the great partnership between the Covenant of Mayors and the EIP on smart cities and communities. Indeed, we are also looking into widening up, scaling this up to the national level. And we have invited for that purpose to give us a bit of a primer in that respect, our colleague Eva Gerhards. She's the deputy head of Unit A1 in DG Energy, and she is also, between many other things, I guess, also responsible for the governance of the Energy Union. Eva, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much. Also to invite me here today, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm here today to speak about the links between the European Innovation Partnership on Smart Cities and Communities and the governance of the Energy Union. You might know that this week is a decisive week, and we're in a decisive time until the end of June, because we're in the final stage of negotiating the Renewable Energies Directive, the Energy Efficiency Directive, and the Governance Regulation. All three pieces of legislation are part of the so-called Clean Energy for All Europeans package, which the Commission proposed end of 2016. And the last 1.5 years, we have been discussing these files with the co-legislators, and we hope to come to an agreement very soon. These three files are about the future of Europe's energy system, and more precisely about the next decade, because the Renewables Energies Directive and the Energy Efficiency Directive will set the targets at EU level for the share of renewables and energy savings until 2030. And with the governance regulation, we will have for the first time ever a comprehensive piece of legislation covering all dimensions of the energy union, including the part on CO2 reductions to implement the Paris Agreement. The main tool of the governance regulation is introducing national energy and climate plans. The member states are supposed to draft these plans for each of the coming decades, and they will set out their national contributions to the EU targets, but also to all of the 5 dimensions of the energy union in these plans. And the governance regulation will ensure that the targets are reached at EU level. In case of insufficient pledges by the member states or non-delivery on the targets, it has introduced a gap filler to bring the EU back on track to reach its targets. And now I'm coming to the link to today's initiative on innovation and smart cities. In the second half of 2018, the member states should submit their plans, their draft national energy plans, to achieve the EU's energy and climate target. And these plans will comprehensively address policies and measures with a 2030 horizon. And the idea is also that this gives security to investors and that investors know that member states have these targets and will implement these measures and will not reduce these targets downwards, so there is a visibility until the end of the decade. And in order to make green projects viable, we need both public and private investments. And cities are the main aggregators of demand here, and they can be part of developing the national plans and contribute to achieving the energy union at the local level. Based on the local energy and climate plans, investors will be able to identify valid investment opportunities. And this will not only contribute to achieving the EU's ambitious energy and climate targets, but it will also enable a real market for smart city solutions with an impact on national plans. We need your contributions to the energy union. Thank you very much, and I wish you a very successful matchmaking session.
Thanks a lot, Eva. Actually, you took my script away, but we should be fine, no problem. Thank you. No, that's fine. Okay, so with no further delay, I would like to introduce to the next speaker. We have now spoken about the partnership between the Covenant of Mayors, the EIP on smart cities and communities. We have learned that the local plans may introduce and may have an impact on introducing the national plans. And now we have a word from a representative from the Covenant of Mayors on how he sees how all that gets together. Dermish, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Let's say that I don't think we need to mention the number of signatories nowadays, but currently we are counting more than 7,000 signatories of the Covenant of Mayors. So in terms of promotion, probably I don't need to say more. It's a successful initiative. And now this initiative going more internationally, we can see, let's say, this great initiative growing and the importance that this initiative has for local regional authorities, but as well for the European Commission. The success of this initiative is not going only to the cities, to signatories, but to the Common Office, who is supporting them on a daily basis, to the regions, provinces, National Association of Local Regional Authorities, who are supporting all the signatories in their territories. So we are very proud, I should not forget the Commission, of course, supporting from the beginning the initiative, and we can see that the support towards the Covenant of Mayors is growing, and interest is there. In terms of, let's say, to keep up this success, we see as well some challenges. We like to see more and more support in terms of, from a political perspective, technical, and when it comes to financial, let's say financial means, we still think that here we need to pay particular attention. Sustainable energy and climate action plans are a request for receiving funding under the Horizon 2020 Smart City Lighthouse project calls. We see a strong link with this initiative, and from the beginning, the Covenant of Mayors, let's say, put together with the team, and we are working all together to establish a process for the realization of those local actions. Today, we see how those plans translate to project ideas, ideally to deals, which can be repeated, replicable in other cities. We hopefully going to listen this afternoon, what are the successful factors that can be taken forward from other local authorities in Europe. And as a, let's say, local regional authorities representatives, CMR, we are happy to play a bigger role with our associations of local regional authorities in Europe to help you with the promotion and dissemination of those good practices and success factors. The solution found in Smart Cities Lighthouse project need to be looked as well into a perspective from a local, from a small local authorities. As those examples corresponding to the needs of local authorities, be happy to hear as well and see how the small municipalities and cities can profit and benefit from this great, let's say, experience from the 10 lighthouse projects. Looking into the composition of the projects today, we have good reasons to ask these questions, of course. Looking into the key successful factors to scale up those projects, we may consider a high role from different actors at the national territories. Who are the actors that can help us to scale up and replicate those projects into the other cities? Before looking into those plans, I would like to flag back a day for not to be down. 28th and 29th of September in Paris, the Covenant of Mayors will participate in the Change Now Summit. So I would like to invite you to look into the website of the Covenant of Mayors. There's just an application form. And we invite you to send us your interest to be part and apply, be part of the delegation of Covenant elected representatives. I'm very happy to receive your applications. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And of course, we will put this up on the EIP-SEC website to make noise about it, if not already done, I'm not quite sure, but we will do that in any case. Dermish, of course, touched on a somewhat interesting and yet very important point, and that is that Europe is represented to a large extent, to the biggest extent actually, by medium-sized and smaller cities. And that's something which technically is very, very difficult to address in our calls, since like preparing proposals for our calls for proposals, that takes, of course, effort and money. And it's not always possible to come over that hurdle for medium and small sized cities. That's actually also one good reason more to think about financing, to unlock the potential of smaller and medium-sized cities, because they are also very flexible and very innovative. So, I have the pleasure to introduce to you now a representative of the Lighthouse Group, Mr. Damian Wagner, who is now telling us how we can actually translate the experience from the Lighthouse projects, which are also, of course, including quite a number of follower cities, to the broader landscape of European cities in terms of financing, in terms of learning, in terms of replicating. So, Damian, we are very curious. The floor is yours. Thank you. Before I forget, das darfst du nutzen, weiterzuschauen.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I have 5 minutes to tell you what we have learned in 3 up to 5 years. It's a real pleasure being here to representing 12 consortia by now. I'm from Triangulum. We have been running for 3 years. And one of the key success factors to smart cities really is partnership and collaboration. And so I'm very glad to be here and see there's a collaboration with the Convent of the Mayors EIP Commission going on. And this is exactly the leadership we need to drive and upscale the smart cities. Well, after 3 years of implementation, all the pains and gains, indeed, I think one of the main lessons learned really is, if we look at smart cities, you know, technology itself won't make a smart city, you know. I mean, you have technology there, but it's kind of chaotic. So there's a lot more beyond it. And, well, the peak of the iceberg is the technology we put in, you know, very good ones. We have very good solutions there, but there's so much more, well, on the surface. One of the main things, and all people of you who have done smart city projects know, you know, dealing with the new processes, suddenly people have to work together, departments have to work together, new governance processes, integrated strategy. This is one of the main challenges, to integrate kind of the smart cities and the future cities thought. And then you need all the expertise, which of course you can't have, and not even Fraunhofer as an organization can have. And this is kind of the baseline, what you really need. And then, of course, data platforms. We kind of, in different cities, set up data platforms. And this is a huge challenge for cities. Which role do they want to take with regards to data? And I think all of you have dealt with the GDPR challenges like this just pop up at some point as it was now. But one of the really positive outcomes was all our projects, and Triangulum as well, has been a huge accelerator. So we have triggered projects worth about, Triangulum alone, projects worth about 50 million euros, other lighthouse projects, etc., out of the consortium. We have a couple of spin-offs, very successful ones, the Nordic Edge conference in September, and various other business initiatives. But one at this point, especially for the first projects that I've implemented, at this point, the biggest challenge is really how can we replicate, upscale our solutions, our experiences, and how can we make it measurable and bankable, which is one. How can you not technology, how can you make this bankable so banks can actually invest in it? And I think one of the main assets of these projects, these test beds we have, and so many of them in 80 cities in Europe, is really, we have the lighthouse projects, and they really run the trial and error, and you can be sure many of the things you imagine in the beginning won't work out. But in the end, you find a solution, you find a proper solution which is in the context. You do the expertise building, with your partners within the city. You do the governance processes. In our project was kind of a training mission, and with regards to technology, you really do kind of risk reduction. So what we did in Triangulum, just as an example, is we have 70 use cases now. We can take them on, bring it somewhere else. Business partners already sell our solutions to other cities and countries. And this is one of the big assets we have within the projects, and which makes it particularly interesting to business as well. And kind of to wrap it up, so our group of 12 projects now, one of the exercises really was to see what solutions do we have. I told you 70 alone in Triangulum. Imagine how many in total. And so what business cases we had, what are the low-hanging fruits, which you can see in the right up corner. And the exercise right now is how can we package this? Humble Lamppost is one of these solutions, which will be in Sofia as well. And this is a big gain, not only for partners, but for cities as well that are looking for new partners. Well, coming back to the picture, could be anywhere in Asia. This was in Shanghai. It looks like quite chaotic, and technology is not the solution. But if you look at it, this little cable down there is actually a broadband cable, which makes this house faster than most of the internet we have in Germany. So it's always, not at first sight, maybe you don't see the beauty of it. But if you dig deeper and if you team up, you can really get something out of it. And this is why I'm very much looking forward to the session we have now. We have cities, we have the greater context, we have a business development opportunity as well, and the market at the same time, of things you have to develop anyway. And I'm very much looking forward to some excellent examples that will show us, what can be done and give you good taste what we will have in Sofia as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Damian, for this little crash course what lighthouse projects go about and have to go through during implementation. And I guess what's really important here, and that was one of the key points of your presentation as well, is bankability, replicability, and how do you actually transfer all that knowledge and capacity to smaller cities, to other regions, and maybe finally to some kind of national plan, going back to what Eva has introduced to. So, but I'm very happy to have, we should be very happy to have 3 cities with us today, 2 of which are actually involved in lighthouse programs, and 1 of which is not, which is great, because that's exactly the mixture we want to have. We want to have we are happy to fund a number of projects in cities, of course, from an EU perspective, from EC point of view, if you want. But what's needed is a much broader approach. We need many more cities who join the club, who benefit from the knowledge which is there, who take that chance to upscale, to meet requirements for financing, to understand what the process is behind. And it's not only technology, it's much more related to organizational problems, and these things Damian has also mentioned. So with no further delay, I would like to introduce to our first city. But before I do that, I would like to introduce to you how this all is going to work today. You might ask yourself, okay, so how are we going about the matchmaking later on? So this little slide shall explain to you how it's all going to work. Basically, we have 3 color codes. Those color codes, which are red, or orange, green, and blue, you will find also on the slides which are shown after this by the respective cities we have the pleasure to have with us. And you will find those color codes also outside in the matchmaking area later on. There will be 3 tables where you would find the city representatives, but you are, of course, also invited to find other like-minded people with the same color code and start discussing about your ideas, your smart city-related projects. And I shall also mention, I will introduce to them later, that we also have representatives of the financing community here. So I will introduce to them later on, of course. But this enough for now. I will now introduce to, we will now go ahead with, let me have a look, with Amélie Jouvenot from the city of Seraing. Amélie, welcome. The floor is yours. So go ahead and explain us about your project. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I will briefly talk about some projects happening in Seraing. Seraing is a 60,000 inhabitant city located in Belgium next to Liège. It is involved in the Covenant of Mayor initiative for 5 years, and we participate to the Smart City Remo Urban project as a follower city. I just give a few words about the context of the opportunities I will present now. So in response to the departure of the steel industries, the city of Seraing decided to implement an ambitious reconversion plan, which includes the reconversion of a lot of abandoned industrial sites. This plan is called the Seraing Master Plan. Its implementation started in 2006, mostly through ERDF funding. RIGES is the coordinator of the implementation of this plan, but the implementation of the plan also involves a lot of stakeholders, such as the city itself, mobility service providers, AREPS. This is where I work for. AREPS is in charge of the implementation of the Climate Action Plan, so we are directly involved in this global project, and many other stakeholders are also involved. I'm not going to talk too much about this global plan, but I can give more information later during the matchmaking session. Among all the master plan projects, we thought that the development of the transistor neighborhood fits with the topic of the day. You can see on the slide that 3 particular projects offer opportunities for developing a smart solution. So the first one is called Ateliers Centraux. Ateliers Centraux is going to become in the 3 next years a multimodal platform with train, buses, and a shared parking area. In addition to building retrofitting, what we foresee as a future opportunity for this specific project is linked to mobility services, vehicle-to-grid projects, etc. These kind of things. I will show you a little bit after some pictures so you can have a better idea of what I'm talking about. The second one is about a cultural project. The concert hall called the OM is now being renovated, and we are still looking for a project to complete the retrofitting of an old hospital, which is located just next this concert hall. And it counts 5,000 square meters. So this is also one opportunity. And the third one is the 4 hectares Trasester Park. In this park, you can find several high-quality architecture but highly deteriorated buildings, which offers opportunity for deep retrofitting with the challenge to preserve the cultural heritage. So this was a very short introduction, and I think it's good to show you a few pictures you can also find on our website. So you can see there a global view of the neighborhood. You can see that it's next to the River Meuse, and the 2 blue roofs are the Ateliers Centraux, the first project I talked about. Each part of these halls counts 10,000 meter squares, and the project of the multimodal platform is part of that. It's 5,000 meter squares of this project. Here you can see the concert hall I was talking about, and below you can see part of this the project for renovating the hospital, which will be part also of the cultural project. And the last slide shows you the park area. I don't know if you can see very, but I also have picture to show you later at the table, but you can see on the left the former Ougray Town Hall, which is a specific architecture and which need to be renovated. And you also have a global view of the park on the right. So this whole neighborhood was part of the ArcelorMittal steel industry, and energy was also coming from ArcelorMittal. So most of those buildings are not connected to the public grid. So the challenge of energy is very important. I think it's the last one. And yeah, so I think it will be a good opportunity to talk later. And I think it's a very great opportunity for me to be here today, because I think we can be considered as a small city, 60,000 inhabitants. Yeah, I will be glad to talk to you later. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much. Before we go to the next presentation of the city of Umeå, okay, that was right, I guess. Let me just tell you that this gentleman here will go through the seats and will hand out the color codes already now. So you grab one of those sheets, and while we are listening to the pitches of the next 2 cities, you can already make a decision which city you want to meet, and put that sticker visibly on your shirt or your jacket so that others can easily find you and see what you're interested in. Thank you. So again, with no further delay, I would introduce to Karina Aschan from Umeå. Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Very well pronounced.
Thank you.
Okay, Karina from Umeå. I will tell you a little bit about 3 of our solutions in ruggedized project, but I will actually go to that picture because this is quite important in our solutions, the location of Umeå. This is a map, the European map with all the lighthouses. We are the one further north than anyone else. It's quite small, medium-sized town of 125,000 inhabitants. But in Sweden, that's not so small. It's by far the largest city in North Sweden. And why it's important that we are in the north is that everything we do has to do with cold weather in the wintertime. We need to stay warm, and that we need a lot of energy for that. But then again, we have a lot of good sustainable energy also in North Sweden. One of the solutions has to do with the EV charging hubs that we are developing in our innovation district. Our district is a university and a regional hospital area. It's a very, very big workplace area. It's the biggest workplace area in North Sweden, actually. So a lot of people come there every day. And we want, of course, this to be, we want them to come there by sustainable transports. It's a good place to travel sustainable also, but these hubs we will have this solar power on the roofs of the hubs. We call them service hubs, with battery storage on the ground to store this, so we can charge the cars, and we have this kind of cargo bikes also, as is the student area, as a lot of students want to go shopping with the electric bikes. And also we want to discover how we can use the transport of the hospital transports with electric taxis. So this is what we are developing there. The next one is our fast charging fully electric buses. We have around 15 of them now. We have just bought another 25, so it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually no other city in Sweden that have more electric buses than us. They are actually the long ones, not that one, the long ones that bend in the middle. So this has also got to do with the cold weather of Umeå, is that in the wintertime when the buses stop and open the doors and let people out, the heat from the bus also goes out. So then we have to heat up the bus again, and that is done by the range of the bus, of course, the battery of the bus. So this is something that we're developing, some kind of special electric bus stops, maybe we could call it. We call them climate smart bus stops. And the last one is also to do with storage. This is a sketch of the regional hospital. And there at the bottom, at the right, there's a gigantic storage, geothermal storage. It's actually, it's 125 drill holes, each 250 meters deep, so it's really big. Storing heat from the summer, cold from the winter. So the whole area can be supported with cold in the summer. And this is really important for the hospital. They can't perform their surgery during summertime unless they have a lot of cold. What we are doing now is how we're looking into how we can create this marketplace for this storage, so that other estates in the area can use it, both store and use from it. And we have also an agreement together with the energy company and the other estate owners that we are talking about a kind of sharing economy here. It's not so much selling and buying. So the marketplace is the challenge here. So that was all I had. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Very interesting. So quite a few solutions which I feel are fairly well, like for both of you, fairly well transferable and replicable in other cities. So that gives quite some substance for discussion and for further thoughts on replication and scaling them up. So next one in the row is the gentleman next to me from Újbuda, the 11th district of Budapest. And he will introduce us to what's happening there, which is interesting also because Újbuda is not yet, at least, part of any lighthouse project, if I'm right. So that gives it a special, interesting twist, I think. So I'm quite curious to hear what you are going to present to us. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hello, everybody. I am Imre Rimóci, who is I am responsible for this project. So this is the idea of the project came from the University of Technology of Budapest. They had the idea that we have to do something with the old socialist concrete multifamily buildings, which has big problems in terms of heating and the cost of heating. So we planned an ambitious project which has a budget of more than 600,000 euro, and we plan to trigger investment up to 20 million euro, but we had problems during the project. In Újbuda, we had 600,000 flats in these types of buildings, and we presume that in Eastern Europe, at least 100 million people live in these kinds of in these types of buildings. So if you want to have a kickstart to cut CO2 emission and these policies, you have to start by deep refurbishment of these kinds of these types of buildings. In Eastern Europe, the policy was that we had building factories who developed some plans, and if we plan deep refurbishment and start the construction works, you have model plans and model technology, and it could be replicated easily in the country and in the region as well. The bad news is that we have only one building out of the 14 who started refurbishment, changing windows in the public spaces and insulation. The good news is that we have numbers. If you have so the numbers, but this this house, which is in the Regulus Street in Gazdagrid, which is a very it's a famous estate in Budapest, uses 6,400 gigajoule for heating, and almost if you insulate the house, you can have a cut about 2,000 gigajoule per year. And for the European Commission's colleague, I have also numbers about the CO2 equivalent. If you by the insulation of the house, you can cut the CO2 emission by almost 100 tons per year. And changing windows in the public spaces, 19 tons per year. Every year, the prices of the houses in this kind of building rise by 10 to 30%. So, at the beginning of the project, a deep refurbishment cost per flat amounted to the 1/3 of the price of the house, but today it's only 1/6 of the price about. And these numbers are coming from the Budapest Central Heating Company, who is the monopolistic provider of hot water to these houses. So we have good connections also to the house managers and the house balances, at least in Újbuda, and also to the heating monopoly, which is owned by the municipality of the capital of Buda. The cost of the insulation is less than 1 million euro. It's undersigned by the house representative, and the only problem that the house, the assembly of the house, voted for this investment if we provide some grants to the investment, to the construction works, and by the end of the negotiations, without the help of the central government, the local government of Újbuda promised 10% of the loan as a grant to the house, and they voted for starting this construction work. So out of the 14 houses, we had one who has started, and if you are interested in by financing the other 13 houses, you can have a whole picture of the Hungarian market of these types of buildings, because they were selected by the University of Technology and Economics of Budapest, and they had and they have and they have their own model plans and model technology, which was used in the 60s and the 70s. So I would be pleased if you ask me questions and we talk about this project afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I just bring this up once again to remind about the color codes. And we are now also happy to welcome with us here in this room a few representatives of the financing community. And where's my script? Who has stolen my script? So, because actually, thank you.
I didn't steal it.
Because as a moderator, I want to introduce the people in the right way, of course, you see. So, yes, thank you. So, we have with us Paola Rusconi, or Rusconi, from EEF Investment Fund. Please stand up for a moment. Oh, you did, I'm sorry. Then we have Alessandra Cassisi with us. Here we go. Accompanied by her colleague Angelo Giordano. Then we have Mr. Joost de Klerk with us from the Belfius Bank. I forgot to mention that Alessandra and Angelo are from the OV Group, which is a specialized project assessor within the UniCredit Group. And finally, we have Mr. Dominik Bach with us from KfW. Welcome. So these are the people you might want to talk to when it comes to financing. They will be around. And they will be, for the, let's say, for the first 10 to 15 minutes, they will be at the tables of the cities, and then will, of course, be at your disposal for discussions. But before the cities and the investors and financing community members leave the room, I would invite you to stay here 10 minutes longer, so you can get to learn each other before we then move to the tables. For the rest, I would like to remind you about the colors. Please put them on visibly on your jacket. And also I would like to mention that we have 2 additional topic tables available for those ones who are not immediately interested in discussing about financing or about the solutions presented. These topic tables will be kindly provided by our colleagues from the Covenant of Mayors and also from the Lighthouse Project Group. We have one table, how do we replicate digital islands, mobility hubs, role of the cities, and what is in for investors and companies, moderated by Bernadette. You can also stand up, please, shortly. And then we have another table, get support, discover the next activities of the Covenant of Mayors and the EIP SEC Marketplace, and get involved. At this table you have a wealth of moderators, basically. You have Claire Buffett, you have Eugenia Manzutti, Derek Pisani over here, and Paolo Gentili. I don't spot him at the moment, right there. And so they will be there at times, not all of them all at the same time, I guess. That's it for now. So you may move already into the atrium, pick your sticker, and get to the tables, get yourself oriented. And I would ask the cities and the financing representatives to stay in the room for 5 to 10 minutes more. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please say the colors and the cities again.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, I can do that. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah. Sometimes we are prepared. So blue is for Serein, red is for Umeo. I'm still learning, and green is for Uibuda. And so you will find the 3 representatives at the respective tables, which are clearly marked. So thank you for now. We will join you in 10 minutes. Thank you.